Howdy, folks. I'm Gruesome Green Beans, gently guarding graveyard grotesqueries.
I'm Amber.
And here are more graveyard grotesqueries for us to guard. I don't know how green beans do it, but we've got like little green bean we've got the pods. We can shoot beans at things and like defend them.
Ooh, yeah, this is like Plants vs. Zombies type deal.
Yeah, it is exactly that. It's exactly that. We'll save the graveyard from the zombies. Let's get started. Alright, folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Refusing to Agree to My Husband's Demands and Quit My Job After Being Put on a Intimate List at Work? So, this is a throwaway because of obvious reasons. My husband and I work at the same field, but not at the same company, and it's a male-dominated field without getting into too many details. Now it's come out that the men at my workplace have made a list of the women at work, about 10%, rating different features and their abilities to sleep with them. And my husband is very distraught because people in the field are making fun of him. I'm very distraught as well, and so is every woman at my workplace. Now my husband says that I should quit my job that I love very much. I refuse because then they will win. I don't care about the list and ratings. Nobody has been man enough to bother me in person. My husband owns his own company, and he thinks that I should work for him instead, but I refuse to. He is livid, and I have told him that he should divorce me if he is so uncomfortable, and now he thinks that I'm the jerk. Edit. It sounded like my husband asked me, one moment, and I said no. Divorce me, then the next moment, when I reread my post. But this is because I kept it short. This has been going on for about 2 months. This discussion, I got drained, and I asked him for a divorce yesterday. 2, it's already an ongoing investigation with HR and management. 3, we have made, me and the other women, some compromises like working more from home and stop using the gym in our building. We get 5 paid workout hours from work to use the gym as part of our health benefits. We stop that now. All right, folks, what do you think of this?
No, absolutely not the jerk. If OP wanted to stop for quit for her own discomfort, that would be one thing.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that OP wants to stay here and not let them win, you do you, and more power to you. These guys need people who are gonna stand up to them and let them know that what they're doing is inexcusable. And for it sounds like OP's husband is more concerned about people making fun of him and his reputation than he is about OP herself.
Well, he also might look at this as a way of getting his wife to work for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this gives him a lot more power and control in that dynamic, right?
Yeah, it would, and I hope that's not the motive. I would hope he's just concerned and really bad about showing it. But he needs to stop. He needs to listen to her, accept that she is an adult and she knows what is best for her better than he does.
Well, and family working for family can be a really hard situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it can cause a lot of problems. It can cause, and especially for a business where if he has other employees, what's it going to look like, right?
Well, and there's also the power dynamic in the relationship too. If he is the boss, there are some times where couples co-own a venture, and that's a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah.
But if he has power over her in the workplace, and then that drains down to the household, that can create a really bad situation.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about at first there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's all kinds of interlocking power mechanisms at play here that I don't
Mm-hmm.
think make for a very good situation. I mean, OP is right to trust her gut. She should continue to work at this place as long as she wants to. And if she doesn't want to work for her husband, then he needs to accept that as an answer, right? He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't need to be pushing her to work for them. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Not Agreeing to Sleep in a Bra? I'm a 22-year-old female, and I recently went on a small family trip to celebrate my dad's early retirement. A family friend let us borrow their lake house, but sleeping arrangement meant that I had to share a room with my sister, a 24-year-old female, and her husband, a 30-year-old male, in a room with 2 beds. They're newlywed, who quickly married, so this is the first time that they're going on a trip with us. I really didn't think that it was going to be an issue because with the whole lake available to us, we wouldn't be spending much time in our rooms. The first night, there was no problem. The second night, my sister pulled me aside right before we went to get ready for bed and asked me to change what I was sleeping in because her husband was uncomfortable. For some context, this might be too much information and I'm sorry. I am flat-chested woman. This is quite literally the most annoying thing in my life, and I'm not sorry that I do not sleep in a bra. That being said, it wasn't like I was sleeping in lingerie. It was just a big t-shirt, but because of how I'm built, you could tell that I was braless. I've never thought that it was a big deal, but her husband is rather conservative, like in all senses of the word. I politely told my sister no, because the only things that I brought were a swimsuit, which would be even worse, B, a tight compression sports bra for the beach volleyball, which I don't think is even medically advisable to sleep in, and C, a sweatshirt, which I guess would disguise it more, but it was hot and I didn't want to wear it. She pressed me again and I said no again, pointing out that her husband slept shirtless. I don't actually care, but it seemed hypocritical to me, so I said that if I am asked to find a way to cover up more, despite wearing a shirt, he should have to as well. She got mad at me and said that I was being ridiculous and staring at her husband. I would never, and kept raising a stink and trying to involve the rest of the family, saying that it was a simple request and that I must be trying to tempt her husband. I loudly fired back that this wouldn't be a problem if her husband wasn't staring at my chest, which prompted my parents to have me sleep on the couch in the living room for the rest of the trip. I also made a point for the rest of the trip to loudly call out her husband if he was looking too long at my chest in my swimsuit, which happened a couple of times before he learned his lesson. I didn't think that I overreacted. I might have gotten a bit heated, but it was a line with my sister. But my family is kind of blaming me for ruining my dad's celebration by not letting it go, and I can't help but feel guilty. And Dad, if you're going to make a comment sexualizing me, don't. It's weird and not funny. Alright, folks, what do you think of this?
No, you're not in the wrong. You deserve to be comfortable. And if he's too immature to like deal with people not wearing bras, he should have been the one to sleep on the couch. Like, he was the one making everything uncomfortable. He couldn't be an adult and just like not stare at your chest. Like, the entire trip he's just been like staring at OP's boobs, and they're like, how dare you call him out and point this out.
Yeah, I do want to point out in the comments a little bit here that OP says that they didn't bring a regular bra because they're either on the beach wearing a bathing suit, because this is like, I guess, a shorter trip, or she's wearing her sports bra. And so those two situations are, I guess, like, she probably doesn't wear bras all that often anyways, but it is, I think that she is like, wasn't prepared for this because she wasn't expecting it to be an issue, right?
Well, and even if she had brought a regular bra, it still wouldn't, like, she still shouldn't have to wear something that makes her uncomfortable. Because a lot of people don't like wearing bras to bed.
But I mean, I think in the end here, he really does need to control himself better, and I think that this is just not a good look on him. Like, if OP's sister is this concerned, then like you said, maybe sleeping on the couch is the best thing for him, and that way they don't have to deal with this kind of stuff here. But he really shouldn't be staring at her like this anyways, right?
Right, and he deserves to be called out if he is doing it, And I don't understand why the family isn't upset with him for staring at someone who doesn't want to be stared at.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for continuing to teach my daughter about history and critical thinking despite my wife asking me to stop? I have a daughter who's a 12-year-old female, and I've been teaching her things outside of her school curriculum, and she loves learning stuff. This includes science, which is my field, and history. To develop her critical thinking skills, I also let her reflect on both the pros and cons of historical events and teach that to her. My wife is upset at me for spending so much time on teaching her and thinks that I should either skip the critical thinking aspect or just only teach her science, and claims that I'm not educated enough to teach history. I'm not a historian, but I refer to very good history books and websites when I do so. The other day, I was teaching about the women's rights movement and the suffragettes, and how even after that, the women couldn't have credit cards, and I asked her to reflect on the pros and cons, and she did, but it was on the weaker side since it was hard to argue on the cons. I gave her hints and I tried to explain to her about factors including less time for childcare, excess labor leading to higher productivity, but lowering inflation, adjusted wages, and women being willing to do the same work for less, benefiting corporate interests. My daughter was happy to learn, but then she later went to talk to my wife and to get her thoughts on the matter, and my wife found out that I was teaching her this topic. She got upset and called me a jerk and told me that I am raising our daughter to lose confidence in herself, which is far from what I'm doing. I just want her to be a critical thinker and not a memorization machine. All right, folks, what do you think?
Yes, OP, you are a major jerk, and your biases are showing. Uh, why does there have to be less child time for childcare? Like, why couldn't the men have stepped down from their jobs and taken over the childcare? And then that would have also gotten rid of your excess labor shortage claim. And also, like maybe people would have still been willing to work for less, who knows? But it seems very one sided. Like, not every argument has equal weight. And if you're only like, well, but really, should women have rights? We need to look at why they shouldn't. We need to, like, why aren't you doing the exact same thing with men? Because you can make the very same arguments.
Well, and I think that there's a lot of issues in the way he's presenting the, two sides of things, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is like saying, well, what are the pros and cons of slavery, right? I mean, like, there, yeah, there were definitely pros and cons for the people who owned slaves,
Yes,
right?
yeah, and like, but not for the people who were enslaved. And that's a very good point. Is like he's looking at things from the perspective of a perspective of privilege, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, for those of us in positions of privilege, you got to look at our pros and cons. That's a
Yeah.
really excellent point. He's not looking at it from the perspective, because she's looking at it from the perspective of the women themselves, where there are some very obvious pros, whereas he's looking at how does this benefit men.
So, and I would also like to point out that a lot of his arguments kind of fall apart in the respect that women can choose to stay at home and take care of children, right? The civil rights movement doesn't stop women from not working, right? And having the same traditional structures that were in place before the civil rights movement, right? All it did is open up the workforce and open up opportunities to women who didn't want to choose that lifestyle that had been traditionally, in place, right? So I think that this it doesn't really hold the weight that I think he does, because women can still choose to be at home. Now men can choose to be at home, right?
Right, and that's
So
a better society in general, one where people can do what they want to do and not be forced into roles just because they, are a particular gender.
so I think that he's really missing the boat in these arguments, because there are certainly topics where there are two sides to it, right? There
Hmm.
are always consequences for the different types of things. And I think he could teach still the consequences of some of these things, but I think framing it as like, here are some pros and cons, and without thinking about the perspective from which he's kind of teaching the pros and cons
Right.
isn't really the best approach to history.
Well, and it's not engaging in critical thinking in the way he thinks it is either. He's just, can you think like a person in privilege?
Yeah.
And in the comments, apparently he's also taught her about the Holocaust and gotten her to say that she can see why the Nazis did what they did.
Oh, wow, that's lovely. That's very
Which
lovely.
goes on to show you that what he's doing is not good. He's looking at things from the side of the oppressors, the people in power, and trying to get her to see their side instead of asking her because you can think critically without being like, yeah, the Nazis kind of had a point. The anti-suffragists kind of had a point. They didn't. None of them did.
Yeah, well, and that's really problematic in the respect that if you're trying to say that the one group of people who was actively trying to oppress and committed genocide had points, and like that's a really hard line to walk, right? Like that's saying some really because it's too complicated to get into in this video,
Right.
and to say certain things in such a short period of time would be really not giving the topic the justice that it deserves.
For sure.
And to say like, oh, every single idea that the Nazi party had was bad certainly is like, paints with a very broad stroke. However, there's a reason why we don't compare ourselves to a group of people who essentially, did all these horrible things. Right? It's very difficult. It's very difficult to pull out the good aspects of a society that built itself on the blood of other people, right? And I mean, that is really what you're trying to do when you are looking at, oh well, what are the good things about this society? Did they have any ideas that were worth merit? Why do you need to look at a society that did this? There's a lot of other societies in the world that have built themselves up without resorting to the
Genocide.
yeah, genocide and other things that the Nazi party did.
Yeah, so I mean, I think OP needs to take a critical examination at what perspective he is teaching history from and look at it from the lenses of the people who are being oppressed. And maybe he needs some critical thinking before he tries teaching his daughter anymore.
Yeah. So, but let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here, and Amber, she has a joke.
Two turtles are in a tank. One asks the other, "Do you know how to drive this thing?"
I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Speaking of the Blitzkrieg, and I have Mega Mint. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Friday, Junior, folks.
Happy Friday, Junior.
Thanks so much to Amber for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance, and please have it on civil rights.
Moving toward a more egalitarian society is a good thing. And regardless of what the oppressors say.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Which prompted her parents to have me sleep in the couch. In the couch. It's one of those fold-up couches. You don't want to wear a bra, then you're going to be contained inside the couch.